100 Tears. Chapter 1: The Star Tear Pendant. Snow fell gently on a quiet Christmas Eve as Leo wandered through the forest on the outskirts of his village. An orphan with no family, he often spent his days feeling like an outsider, and during the holidays, he found solace in the silent embrace of the snow-covered woods. The cold wind stung his cheeks, and the crunch of snow underfoot was the only sound accompanying him. "Why am I the only one who's always alone?" he muttered under his breath forming small clouds in the icy air. As he sighed and stopped to rest, something faintly glowing caught his eye from beneath the snow. Curious, he knelt down and brushed away the powdery white blanket, revealing a small, broken pendant. The broken star tear pendant. The pendant was shaped like a star, with a fragile glass orb set into its center. A network of cracks ran across the glass, and inside, a faint, shimmering light pulsed dimly. "What is this?" Leo whispered as he held the pendant in his hands. He could have sworn he heard a soft voice, barely audible, carried on the wind. "That is the Star Tear Pendant, a vessel of miraculous power," a low voice said from behind him. Startled, Leo turned to see an old traveler shrouded in a thick cloak. The man's presence was calm yet commanding, as though he had appeared out of nowhere. "You know about this pendant?" Leo asked, clutching the broken object closer to his chest. The traveler nodded and began to explain. "This pendant can grant a wish, any wish, once it is restored. To repair it, you must gather 100 tears, but not just any tears. Only those born from the deepest, purest emotions will suffice." 100 tears. Leo echoed, doubt evident in his voice as he stared at the pendant. The traveler smiled gently. "It is no easy task. The tears must come from those who have hidden their feelings away, from moments of love, sorrow, hope, and connection. Along the journey, you may find that the act of gathering these tears changes you as much as it changes the pendant." The beginning of the journey. Leo gazed at the pendant for a long moment. He didn't know what he would wish for, nor how to collect even a single tear. But something about the traveler's words, and the faint pulse of light within the pendant, stirred a tiny spark of hope in his heart. "I'll try," Leo said finally. "I don't know if I can do it, but I'll try." The traveler nodded in approval, his form fading into the swirling snow as quickly as he had appeared. Alone once more, Leo tightened his grip on the pendant and began walking again. The snow crunched beneath his feet as he stepped out of the woods, ready to face the unknown path ahead. This was the beginning of his journey, a journey to collect 100 tears and uncover the wish hidden within his heart. Chapter 2: The First Tear. Clutching the broken pendant tightly, Leo left the village and ventured down a snow-covered path. The cold wind bit at his cheeks, but a small flicker of hope began to warm his heart. 100 tears, but where do I even start?" he muttered, glancing at the pendant. The faint light within the pendant seemed to shimmer, as though guiding him forward. Trusting its gentle glow, Leo continued along the path until he arrived at a small cottage on the edge of the woods. Smoke curled faintly from the chimney, and there was a sense of life within. Hesitating for a moment, Leo knocked on the door. After a pause, it creaked open, revealing an elderly man leaning on a cane. His face was weathered and lined with years of solitude, and his eyes held the heavy shadow of sadness. "What do you want?" the man asked, his tone wary. "I'm traveling," Leo said earnestly. "It's freezing outside, and I was hoping I could rest here for a bit." After a long moment, the man stepped aside and gestured for Leo to enter. Inside, a fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the modest room. Yet despite the warmth, the air felt heavy with an unspoken sorrow. "Do you live here alone?" Leo asked hesitantly. The man nodded, his gaze fixed on the fire. "I have, for many years now. No one comes here anymore." Leo's curiosity grew, but he hesitated before asking, "Why is that?" The man sighed deeply, as though the weight of the question pressed heavily on his chest. "Once, this house was filled with laughter and life. I had a family, children who ran through these halls, a wife who brightened every corner. But they were taken from me by illness, one by one. Now, there's nothing left. Just me and the silence." A tear from the heart. Leo felt a pang in his chest as he listened. He remembered the traveler's words, "Tears are not born from sorrow alone." He leaned forward slightly. "Your family. Could you tell me more about them? What were they like?" The man's expression softened as he hesitated, then began to speak. His voice, though tremulous, carried warmth as he described his children's laughter, his wife's kindness, and the joy they had once shared in this home. For a moment, the firelight seemed to brighten as he spoke. By the time he finished, the man's eyes glistened with unshed tears. A single tear rolled down his cheek, carrying both the weight of his loss and the love he still held for his family. The tear fell, and as it did, the star tear pendant in Leo's hand glowed softly, drawing in the tear's light. The pendant pulsed with a faint warmth. This is the first tear," Leo whispered to himself, holding the pendant closer. A new step forward. The old man wiped his eyes, a small, weary smile breaking across his face. "Thank you, boy. I haven't spoken about them in years. Somehow, it feels like a weight has been lifted." Leo stood, his heart a little lighter. "Thank you for sharing your story with me. I hope this home will feel a little less empty now." The man nodded, his eyes kind. "Safe travels, Leo. May you find what you're looking for." As Leo stepped out of the cottage and into the snowy path, he looked down at the star tear pendant. The faint light within it was now just a little brighter. "One tear down," he murmured with a small smile. "Only 99 to go." With renewed determination, Leo tightened his grip on the pendant and continued down the path, the snow crunching softly beneath his feet. Chapter 3: The Snowy Garden and the Sleeping Girl. Guided by the faint glow of the star tear pendant, Leo ventured deeper into the wilderness until he came upon a breathtaking sight. Before him lay a snowy garden, blanketed in white. The trees sparkled with frost, their branches laden with snow that looked like delicate blossoms. Despite its beauty, the garden felt eerily quiet, as though time itself had frozen. At the center of the garden stood a grand glass greenhouse. Through its frosted panes, Leo could see the silhouette of someone sitting inside. Curious, he made his way to the greenhouse and carefully opened the door. The sleeping girl. Inside, the air was surprisingly warm. Exotic flowers bloomed despite the icy conditions outside, their vibrant colors filling the space with life. In the center of the greenhouse, on a wooden bench, sat a girl with snow-white hair. Her delicate figure and serene face gave her the appearance of a porcelain doll. She was fast asleep, unmoving. Leo stepped closer but hesitated. Before he could approach further, an elderly woman emerged from the shadows, her expression stern but not unkind. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I'm sorry," Leo replied quickly. "I was drawn here by the light of my pendant. I didn't mean to intrude." The woman's gaze softened slightly as she glanced at the pendant in Leo's hand. "That pendant brought you here. Then perhaps it's fate. The girl you see before you is my granddaughter, Elise. She has been asleep for years, ever since she lost something precious to her. No one can wake her." Leo looked at the girl's peaceful face and asked, "What happened to her?" "She once loved this garden deeply," the woman explained. "But something broke her heart, and she shut herself away, falling into this deep sleep. No doctor has been able to explain it. All I can do is care for her and hope that one day, she'll wake." Unveiling a hidden memory. Leo sat beside Elise and noticed a small sketchbook resting on her lap. Its cover bore the words "The Snowy Garden." Opening it carefully, he found pages filled with detailed drawings of the garden. Each page captured its beauty in vibrant detail: blooming flowers, sparkling frost, and serene pathways. But the final page was blank. "She used to love drawing," the woman said quietly. "That sketchbook holds all her happiest memories of this place. But the day she lost her sister, she stopped drawing altogether." Leo closed the book gently and placed it back on Elise's lap. "Maybe she can still find her way back to those memories," he said, determination sparking in his eyes. Taking the star tear pendant in his hands, he held it close to Elise. "Please, show her the light she's been missing." A tear from the heart. The pendant began to glow softly, its light casting a warm hue over Elise. Her eyelids fluttered, and for the first time in years, she opened her eyes. She looked at Leo, her expression one of wonder. Who are you?" she asked, her voice faint. "I'm Leo," he said with a smile. "I came here to help you remember what you love." Elise looked down at the sketchbook in her lap, her fingers trembling as she picked it up. Slowly, she began to draw on the final blank page. Her pencil sketched the image of two girls holding hands in the snowy garden, her and her sister. Tears welled in Elise's eyes as she finished the drawing. One tear slid down her cheek, glistening like a tiny star, before falling into the pendant. The star tear pendant absorbed the tear, glowing brighter than before. A new beginning. "Thank you, Leo," Elise said, her voice steadier now. "I feel like I can breathe again. The memories are still painful, but I know now that they're also precious." Leo smiled at her. "Your memories make you who you are. Hold on to them, but don't let them stop you from moving forward." Elise nodded, her gaze filled with gratitude. The woman, her grandmother, clasped Leo's hands in hers. "Thank you, young man. You've given her a gift I couldn't." As Leo stepped out of the greenhouse and back into the snowy garden, he looked down at the pendant. Its light was now stronger, warmer, a reminder of the progress he'd made. "That's 3, he murmured to himself, smiling softly. "Only 97 to go." He pulled his cloak tighter around himself and continued on, the snow crunching beneath his boots as he ventured toward the next tear. Chapter 4: The Vanished Star and the Traveler's Wish. With the star tear pendant glowing faintly in his hand, Leo followed its light along a winding path through the woods. The air grew colder, and the snow beneath his feet seemed to shimmer faintly. At last, he arrived at a vast, frozen lake. The surface of the lake reflected the night sky, a perfect mirror of the stars above, except for one dark, empty patch in the middle. "A missing star," Leo murmured, puzzled. In the center of the lake, a small boat floated silently, and on it sat a lone figure. A young man, cloaked and contemplative, gazed into the icy water below. The boat seemed unmoored yet unmoving, as if tethered by some invisible force. Sensing Leo's presence, the man turned his head and beckoned him forward. A meeting on the lake. Leo cautiously stepped closer to the shoreline. As if responding to his intent, the boat glided toward him. Without hesitation, Leo climbed aboard, and the boat gently drifted back to the center of the lake, where it came to a stop. "Who are you?" Leo asked, breaking the silence. The young man kept his gaze on the lake's surface. "I am a watcher of stars," he replied. "I observe the night sky and safeguard its light, ensuring that the stars reflect the hopes and dreams of those below." Leo tilted his head in curiosity. "But there's a missing star. Does that mean someone's dream has disappeared?" The man nodded solemnly. "Yes. That star represents a wish, a prayer that someone once made. When people lose faith in their wishes, when they stop believing in the power of their dreams, the stars tied to those wishes begin to fade. The reason for lost wishes." Leo stared at the dark void on the lake's reflection. "Why would someone give up on their wish?" he asked softly. The man's voice was tinged with sadness as he explained. "Perhaps they felt their dream was impossible. Or perhaps life's struggles made them forget why they wished in the first place. When hope wanes, so too does the light of the stars." Leo clenched the pendant in his hand, determination flickering in his heart. But what if the wish could be rekindled? What if the star's light could return? The man turned to Leo, his eyes widening slightly. If someone were to pray with their whole heart, if they truly believed in their dream again, the star could shine once more. But such faith is rare. Leo's resolve. Leo looked at the dark reflection of the missing star and then at the glowing pendant in his hand. "I want to try," he said firmly. "Maybe I can remind someone why they wished in the first place." The man watched him quietly before nodding. "Very well. Let us see if the heart of a traveler can restore what was lost." Leo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He thought of the people he had met on his journey so far, their struggles, their hopes, and the strength they had shown in moving forward. Then he thought of his own wishes, buried deep within his heart, and whispered a silent prayer. "Please, let the light of hope return to those who need it." The star returns. As Leo prayed, the pendant in his hand began to glow brighter, its warmth spreading through his fingers. The lake's surface rippled slightly, and the dark void where the star had been began to shimmer faintly. Slowly, the missing star reappeared, its light growing stronger until it shone as brightly as the others. The young man on the boat smiled faintly, a look of gratitude in his eyes. "You've done it. The star has returned." Leo felt a single tear roll down his cheek, a mixture of relief and joy. The tear fell into the pendant, and its light grew stronger still. "That's for," Leo whispered, looking at the pendant with a small smile. "A new star in the sky." The boat carried Leo back to the shore, where he stepped onto solid ground once more. He turned to thank the young man, but the boat and its occupant had vanished, as if they had never been there at all. Looking up, Leo saw the star shining brightly in the night sky, a beacon of hope for anyone who looked upon it. "Just 96 more to go," he said to himself, tightening his cloak against the cold. He began to walk, his footsteps crunching softly in the snow as he moved toward the next tear, his heart a little lighter than before. Chapter 5: The Extinguished Lantern and the Forgotten Dream. The star tear pendant glowed faintly, leading Leo down a winding mountain path. The cold air grew sharper, and snow began to fall more heavily. At the end of the path, he saw a small workshop nestled against the mountainside. Its roof sagged under the weight of snow, and its windows were frosted over. It seemed abandoned, but a faint light flickered from within. Curious, Leo pushed open the creaky wooden door. Inside, a man sat alone by a dimly glowing hearth, his face shadowed by exhaustion. He was holding a broken lantern, his hands blackened with soot, as he absent-mindedly polished its glass. "The lantern maker." "Who are you?" the man asked, not looking up from his work. "I'm traveling to collect tears for the star tear pendant," Leo explained, holding up the faintly glowing artifact. "It brought me here, so I was hoping you might share your story." The man let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Tears? This place doesn't have any left to give. There's nothing here worth crying over anymore." Leo glanced around the workshop. Broken lanterns of all shapes and sizes were scattered across the room. Some hung from the walls, while others were piled carelessly in corners. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of oil. "What kind of work do you do?" Leo asked gently. The man held up the broken lantern in his hands. "I used to make these," he said. "Lanterns that could light up even the darkest nights. People came from far and wide to buy them. But the village has been empty for years now, and no one needs lanterns anymore." "Then why are you still making them?" Leo asked, his voice soft but curious. The man hesitated, his hands trembling slightly. "I don't know. Maybe I'm just too afraid to admit that my dream has burned out." Rekindling the light, Leo stepped closer, his gaze steady. "But you're still here, and you're still holding that lantern. That means part of you hasn't given up yet." The man laughed bitterly. "What's the point? Even if I fix it, there's no one left to light it for." "You don't know that until you try," Leo said firmly. "Let me help. Let's fix this lantern together and see if it can shine again." The man looked at Leo, surprised by his determination. After a long pause, he sighed and nodded. "Fine. But don't get your hopes up." Together, they repaired the broken lantern, carefully fitting its parts back into place. The man's hands were unsteady at first, but as they worked, his movements grew more assured. When the repairs were complete, the man picked up a match, his hand trembling as he struck it. The first attempt failed. The flame sputtered out before it reached the lantern's wick. "Try again," Leo encouraged. "You can do this." Taking a deep breath, the man struck the match once more. This time, the flame caught, and the lantern burst to life. A warm, golden glow filled the workshop, casting away the shadows that had long lingered there. A tear from the past. The man stared at the glowing lantern, his eyes wide with wonder. Slowly, tears welled up in his eyes and spilled down his cheeks. "I had forgotten what this felt like," he murmured. "To see something I created come to life again, it's like a part of me has come back." One of his tears fell into the star tear pendant, and its light grew stronger. Leo smiled, holding the pendant close to his chest. "That's 5, he whispered. The man turned to Leo, his expression softer now. "Thank you, boy. You've reminded me why I started this work in the first place." Leo nodded. "Keep making your lanterns. Someone will need their light." A new journey ahead. As Leo stepped out of the workshop and back into the snowy mountain path, he glanced at the star tear pendant. Its glow was a little brighter now, a sign of his progress. 5 down, he said with a small smile. 95 more to go. With renewed determination, Leo wrapped his cloak tighter around himself and set off into the snowy night, his next destination waiting somewhere ahead. Chapter 6: The Frozen Forest and a Lost Heart. Guided by the star tear pendant's faint glow, Leo entered a dense forest blanketed in snow. The trees were cloaked in layers of frost, their branches shimmering like icy sculptures in the dim light. The deeper he went, the colder it became, the air so still it seemed to hold its breath. As he ventured further, he noticed a small figure huddled under a tree. A girl sat curled up, her thin cloak barely protecting her from the biting cold. Her shoulders trembled, and her breath escaped in shallow, frosty puffs. In her hands, she clutched something tightly, as though her life depended on it. A lost girl. "Are you okay?" Leo asked, approaching her carefully. The girl looked up, her wide eyes filled with unshed tears. Her voice was barely above a whisper as she replied, Who are you?" "I'm Leo," he said, kneeling beside her. "What are you doing here, all alone?" The girl hesitated before answering, her voice shaky. "My mother, she told me to wait here. She said she'd come back. But it's been so long, and I think she's forgotten about me." Her words struck a painful chord in Leo's heart. He could feel the weight of her loneliness, her fear. Gently, he placed his own warm cloak around her small shoulders. "I don't think your mother would forget you," he said softly. "She must be looking for you, too. How about we go find her together?" The girl's lips trembled, and she nodded hesitantly. "Do you think we'll find her?" Leo smiled. "I do. Let's try." Searching for her mother. With the star tear pendant's light to guide them, Leo and the girl began their search. As they walked through the frozen forest, the girl shared pieces of her story, her voice fragile yet hopeful. "I think it's my fault," she said, staring at the snow-covered ground. "Maybe I wasn't a good enough daughter. Maybe that's why she hasn't come back." Leo stopped and turned to face her. "That's not true," he said firmly. "No one is perfect, but love doesn't disappear because of mistakes. Your mother loves you, no matter what." The girl looked up at him, her tears threatening to spill over. "You really think so?" Leo nodded, taking her hand gently. "I do. Let's keep going. We're close, I can feel it." A reunion on the frozen lake. They emerged from the forest onto the edge of a frozen lake. The icy surface glimmered in the faint light, and in the distance, Leo saw a lone figure standing in the center. The girl gasped, her eyes lighting up. "It's her," as she cried, her voice trembling with both relief and disbelief. She let go of Leo's hand and ran across the ice toward the figure. "Mom!" The woman turned, her face filled with equal parts joy and sorrow as she saw her daughter running toward her. "Emily," she called, rushing to meet her. When they finally reached each other, the girl threw herself into her mother's arms, and they held each other tightly, tears streaming down both their faces. "I'm so sorry," the mother whispered. "I was trying to find a way back to you. I never wanted to leave you alone. I thought you forgot about me," the girl sobbed. "Never," her mother said, stroking her hair. "Never." A tear of joy. Leo watched the reunion from the edge of the lake, a smile tugging at his lips. The star tear pendant glowed brightly as the mother and daughter's tears fell, their light drawn into the pendant's heart. The glow warmed Leo's hands as he held it close. "That's 6, he murmured to himself. Emily and her mother walked back toward Leo, hand in hand. The woman looked at him with gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you. You brought us back together. I'll never forget this. Leo nodded, his heart feeling lighter as he watched them walk away, their shadows blending into the snowy forest. Toward the next tier. As the stars began to emerge in the evening sky, Leo tightened his cloak around him and looked down at the pendant. Its light was stronger now, a reminder of the progress he'd made. Only 94 more to go, he said quietly, setting off down the path ahead. Though the air was cold, he felt warmth growing steadily within him. Chapter 7, The 100th Tier. The bell's gentle echoes faded into the night as Leo continued down the snowy path. His heart felt lighter, but as he walked, he noticed something strange. The star tier pendant, which had been glowing faintly to guide him, now shimmered erratically, as if uncertain of its direction. Why isn't it leading me anywhere? Leo murmured, clutching the pendant tightly. He stopped in a small clearing, surrounded by tall, frost-covered trees. The night sky opened above him, filled with countless stars that seemed to watch silently. The pendant's light flickered weakly, then dimmed to a faint glimmer, as if urging him to pause. Is this the end of the path? Leo whispered to himself, glancing at the pendant. But I still haven't collected 100 tears. The end of the journey. The stillness of the forest was broken by a familiar voice. Leo, your journey has brought you here, to its final step. Startled, Leo turned to see a shimmering figure emerge from the darkness. It was the spirit who had first given him the star tier pendant. She hovered in the air, her soft glow casting a warm light on the snow around her. What do you mean? Leo asked, confusion and desperation mingling in his voice. I've only collected 7 tears. I'm nowhere close to 100. The spirit smiled gently. You've done far more than you realize. Each tear you've collected represents not just a moment of emotion but the countless connections and hopes you've rekindled along the way. The 100 tears were never meant to be counted one by one. The tears you've gathered are enough to complete the pendant. But it's not shining like it's finished, Leo protested, glancing at the pendant's faint glow. That's because the final tear must come from you, the spirit explained softly. The journey you've taken, the emotions you've shared, and the love you've found, these are all part of your story. Now, you must face your own heart and release the tear you've been holding back. Facing his own heart. Leo froze, his hands tightening around the pendant. My own tear, he echoed, his voice trembling. He had avoided thinking about his own feelings for so long, focusing instead on the stories and struggles of others. Now, the weight of his own journey pressed against him. I've always been alone, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Ever since I lost my family, I've felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I thought this journey was about helping others, but maybe it was about finding something for myself. The spirit watched him with understanding. What is it that you truly wish for, Leo? Leo looked up at the stars, his vision blurring as tears welled in his eyes. I wish for no one to feel the way I did. I wish for everyone to know that they're never truly alone. As he spoke, a single tear rolled down his cheek, warm against the cold night air. The tear fell into the pendant, and the star tear pendant erupted in a radiant light, brighter than Leo had ever seen. The warmth of the light wrapped around him, chasing away the chill of the snow and the loneliness in his heart. The Christmas miracle. The light from the pendant surged upward, spreading across the night sky. Stars seemed to glow brighter, and the warmth of the pendant's light reached the people Leo had met on his journey. The lonely old man, the sleeping girl, the lantern maker, the lost child, and her mother, all of them felt the light and smiled, their hearts lighter than before. "Thank you, Leo," the spirit said, her voice full of warmth. "Your wish has been heard, and your journey has brought hope to countless lives." The star tear pendant floated gently from Leo's hands, ascending into the sky where it became a new star, shining brilliantly among the constellations. It was a star of hope, a reminder of the connections and dreams Leo had helped restore. A new beginning. As dawn broke on Christmas morning, Leo returned to the village. For the first time, it felt different, warmer, more alive. People greeted each other with smiles, their voices filled with cheer. The once quiet streets were bustling with laughter and conversation. Leo stood in the heart of the village, watching the scene with a peaceful smile. The weight he had carried for so long was gone, replaced by a sense of belonging. "This isn't the end," he said softly, looking up at the shining star in the sky. "It's the beginning of something new." With hope in his heart, Leo turned and walked into the bustling village, ready to embrace the future.